Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a horror film, Art of the Devil, Part 3. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. One day, Dit and his master are talking. Dit is a shaman, using black magic to bend reality however he sees fit. Black magic is powerful but very dangerous. When it is used too frequently, the body is unable to contain the energy and the body begins to deteriorate rapidly, as is the case with Dit. To heal this sickness, Dit has come to his master, asking for the third eye, which would allow him to meet the three-eyed devil, who is capable of controlling the raging and destructive magic inside him. But this time, his master is found covered in blood and is pinned to a chair with a noose wrapped tightly around his neck. The master tells Dit that he has become too greedy, and that he will die because his body cannot handle the insane amount of magic that he has absorbed. When the master tells Dit that the three-eyed devil cannot be controlled, as it only stays with whomever it chooses. Dit tortures the master even more for the third eye. Despite his master's refusal, Dit does not give up. He cuts open his master's forehead with a saw, trying to take the third eye from him. But he finds nothing there. Frustrated, he kills his master and sets the place on fire before leaving. After failing to get the third eye, Dit returns to his hotel room. He takes a bath and soaks in water infused with special herbs, trying to heal the bleeding and rotting wound on his stomach. Meanwhile, in a psychiatric hospital, a doctor and a nurse visit one of the patients, Panner. She is pregnant, but is delirious and restless from her depression. They decide to change her medications as her old medicine did not seem to be working. Afterward, the nurse leaves the hospital with her husband to fetch her nephew, Ta, from the train station. When they arrive home, Ta meets his grandparents. As he is settling in, he is reminded of his mother, who died a few years ago. That night, Ta goes out for a walk. He stumbles upon a barn, where he finds his mother's body preserved in salt. When his grandfather catches him, they sit down and begin talking. The grandfather tells him that they can bring his mother back from the dead. He tells Ta that he knows a shaman who can bring her back, and this shaman is Dit. In a flashback, it is revealed that Dit can bring Ta's mother back from the dead, but only if he is given a body in which to put her soul in, as she won't be able to return to her original body. Therefore, the grandfather steals Panner's soul to use her body as a vessel for the soul of Ta's mother. However, since the ritual needed to be done by Ta, who was too young at the time, the ritual failed at last. Now that he is older and has returned, they can finally do the ritual properly. After he returns to his room, Ta reads his mother's diary. He finds out that she was poisoned by his father because his father wanted to be with the sexy Panner instead of her. Panner was originally their teacher, but their father fell in love with her and destroyed their family to be with her. Ta also finds out that this is the reason why Panner's body was used in the ritual. His grandfather wanted to use Panner's body in the ritual as payback for ruining their family and causing Ta's father to poison his wife. The next morning, the nurse drugs Panner and knocks her out. When Panner awakens, she is tied up on a bed in the barn. The whole family is there, as well as Dit, who the grandfather has hired to assist in the ritual. The nurse's husband pulls out a taser and tases Panner's smelly privates, which kills her fetus inside. They begin the ritual later as Dit pours Ta's blood into a cup, while Ta starts reciting the prayer. The nurse starts pulling out the fetus from Panner's privates. While she is resisting, Dit notices the third eye beginning to appear on Panner's forehead. Finally, the fetus is removed, and Panner's soul leaves her body. The body is still for a few moments, but eventually starts moving. The ritual turns out to be successful, and they have brought Ta's mother back from the dead. Dit then ties a red string around her wrist so as to keep the mother's soul to stay attached to the new body. Before he leaves, Dit tells the family to cremate the body in the cemetery, together with the mirror containing Panner's soul inside. Soon after, they burn the body, but the mirror is left unburied. The next morning, the nurse tells her husband that she is pregnant. They celebrate her pregnancy and the fact that their entire family is finally complete again. Back in his hotel room, Dit is plagued by nightmares. He wakes up only to find his wounds spread across his entire stomach and maggots everywhere on the bed and on the floor. A few days after the ritual, the revived mother starts seeing the ghosts of people killed by black magic. When she gets in an argument with the ghosts, the red string on her wrist suddenly breaks. Her body starts convulsing, and she is hurriedly brought into the barn, where she is tied down to a pillar. When the grandmother says that the spirit hasn't completely settled in the body yet, the mother's soul tries to escape the body, but to no success. Later that evening, Ta's mother manages to escape and walks to a secret cabin in the forest, where her husband is secretly tied up and gagged. The mother is angry and comes for revenge for poisoning her to death. She pulls out his toenails and blacks out in pain. When he wakes up, he is able to escape his binds and shoots himself in the head to end his misery. As Ta's mother walks around at night, she is abducted by Dit, who wants the third eye for himself. He brings her to a secluded hut in the jungle and awakens the three-eyed demon inside her. Then the third eye appears on her forehead. But when he pulls out his knife to cut the eye out, he is stopped by Ta, who has secretly followed them. They get into a fight, but Dit points a gun at Ta. Dit kicks Ta out of the cabin, but notices that the mirror with Panner's spirit is broken. He realizes that Panner's soul has returned to her own body, possibly because the red string on the body was broken. She uses her magic to cut him, but he is able to run away in time. Moments after, Panner returns to the house and begins to collect personal items from each of the family members to use for their voodoo dolls. After this, she enters the barn and ties up the grandfather. While he is tied up, she tells him that she will make him experience exactly what she experienced. She inserts a safety pin through his eyelids and attaches them to his eyebrows, making him unable to blink or shut his eyes. After that, Panner rubs salt over his eyes and his wounds. Back inside the house, the mother senses that something is wrong. She starts driving away from the demons, but it's too late as Panner already has her voodoo doll in her hands. Panner stabs a needle through the doll's head, causing the grandmother to stab herself in the ear with an ice pick. Meanwhile, with his hands bound and his eyes held open, the grandfather is forced to watch Panner torment the doll. Ta and the nurse's husband rush to the grandmother to help, but are unable to save her as she bleeds to death from her ear. Panner grabs another doll and puts the two dolls together, tying them to each other with a string. All of a sudden, the nurse bursts out of the house, clutching her bleeding stomach. There is blood running down her legs, showing that her baby has died in her womb. She runs away to the forest and is chased by her husband. When her husband catches up, he comforts her, and they hug each other. As the husband pulls away from her, he realizes that the woman he is hugging is not his wife, but the spirit of Panner, who has tricked him with an illusion of his wife. As the husband is running away, Panner causes scorpions to drop onto the husband's chest. He manages to remove them all before he is stung, but gets caught on a rope tied to the village windmill. The windmill begins to rotate, and the rope around the husband's neck gets tighter. Ta and the nurse both arrive and try to free him from the rope, but to no avail. When Panner blows on a paper pinwheel, the real windmill starts rotating faster, and the husband is pulled up and begins choking. Ta tries to stop the windmill from spinning, while the nurse tries to pull her husband loose, but they cannot stop the windmill. Ultimately, the windmill turns, bringing the husband along with it. He strangles to death as the nurse and Ta watch, unable to do anything. In the following, before she grabs the voodoo doll of the nurse, Panner pulls back the grandfather's head. Forced to look up, Panner starts dripping hot candle wax on his eyes. Ta and the nurse hear him scream in pain, and they rush back to the barn. Panner pulls out a knife and cuts her palm. She mutters a curse into her hand, then wipes the blood on the grandfather's face. Together, Ta and the nurse follow the grandfather's screams. While they are heading toward the barn, they see him walking around blindly. However, this is not the real grandfather. What they see is only an illusion created by Panner's curse to trick and lead them away from the barn. When the grandfather asks Panner why she doesn't just kill him, she responds that he should feel the same pain that she did. She drags the knife slowly down his chest, and after cutting his shirt open, she tells him that the nurse will suffer the pain together with him. Panner wraps the string around a lit candle and holds it to the grandfather's stomach. At the same time, the nurse starts to feel a burning sensation on her own stomach. She falls down in pain and lies screaming on the ground. Panner then grabs a scorpion from the table and shoves it down the grandfather's mouth. Because he is linked to the nurse, she also feels the scorpion sting her insides. She grabs her stomach in pain, but is unable to do anything as the scorpion kills the baby inside her womb. The nurse's belly starts to quickly bloat, and after a few moments, it bursts open, spilling her guts and blood out on the ground. As she dies from the pain and the blood loss, she cries out for her dead unborn child before her gruesome death. The grandfather tells Panner that she is evil, but she only reminds him of what their family did to her. She then grabs a pair of tongs and pulls his tongue out, then cuts it out of his mouth with a pair of scissors. When Ta finds the body of the nurse, he cries and wonders why this is happening to their family. Suddenly, Panner appears beside him and tells him that this is all his fault. She begins to choke him, but is stopped when Dit wraps a spike rope around her neck. While she chokes in his grip, he stabs her with a knife. He talks to the three-eyed devil inside her, telling it to come inside him. She resists, but he only drives the knife deeper into her. Finally, she tells him that the three-eyed demon is inside of her because she willingly offered her body to it, and thus she has become the devil's slave. Dit is shocked and releases her. He calls her crazy and starts slowly walking away from her in fear, but he is soon set on fire by Panner's magic. He manages to take off the burning jacket, but Panner starts chanting a curse, causing Dit to bleed from the wounds on his chest. She tells Dit that he has become too greedy and that his body is getting destroyed by all the magic that he has absorbed. He falls to the ground in pain and eventually dies. Meanwhile, Ta is able to run away. He enters the barn and finds his family around a table, everyone dead except his grandfather, who is bleeding to near death. As Ta approaches his grandfather, the grandfather whispers to him to look behind. When Ta turns around, he finds Panner smiling menacingly. Shortly after, Ta is tied to a bed where Panner burns his skin off. 1 year later, Ta meets a monk while traveling down a river. After inviting him into the boat, the monk tells him that magic is always a vicious cycle. Right when he remembers how Panner burned his skin off, he arrives at his stop and exits the boat. He bows to the monk with his burnt face and limbs in full display. Behind him, Panner opens a door and walks out of the house. She is told by the monk to stop playing with magic or else karma will get her and she will be damned. She begins to cry and stares into the river before her. In the river's reflection, she sees a painful childhood memory. Sick of being bullied by the other kids because of her looks, the young Panner went to a monk and asked for a charm spell, which would make every man fall in love with her. It turns out that this charm is the reason why Ta's father fell in love with her. Because of this charm, the father poisoned his wife so as to do with Panner, starting the chain of revenge and the gruesome events that followed. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.